Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Afternoon. I will take 2 or 3 of my minutes just to take you to Africa. My subject is the experiences we have in Africa, but specifically East Africa. So you'll give me your time. It will be a short journey. And the main reason why I want to take you to Africa, and particularly East Africa, is to see for yourselves the plantations of the tea bushes grown around some of the world's known physical features. Are you ready to go with me? Well, I'll take the lead. Our first stop will be in Malawi, the pioneer of tea in the continent of Africa, with a commercial production commencing in 1880s, in the 19th century. Malawi as a country is the 3rd largest tea producer in Africa and has a 2% slot in the tea export in the world. And from Malawi, I'll take you straight to Rwanda. Rwanda is a small country of about 26,000 square kilometers, a country of 1,000 mountains. And Rwanda is known for its mountains because it has got mountainous landscape. I would like you to imagine, but you are in my vehicle. You go up if you like, in those 1,000 mountains. You look down the mountain, you'll see the tea gardens, the tea bushes. Those who cannot climb with me, you're allowed to be on the ground. And you'll also see the valleys that are between those mountains. Rwanda as a country is known for producing very good quality tea among our members in Africa and competing in the world. From Rwanda, I'll take you to my country, Kenya. Kenya is a beautiful country divided by the Great Rift Valley into 2 equal parts, East and West. Most of the tea, actually more or less equally, teas are grown in the east of Rift Valley and west of Rift. In the east of Rift Valley, tea is grown around Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya, for your information, is the 2nd highest mountain in Africa, only 2nd to Mount Kilimanjaro. And in the west, tea is grown in the highlands, stretching to Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is the largest tropical lake in the world and 2nd freshwater lake again in the world. And that is where tea is grown in Kenya. Having talked about Lake Victoria is shared by 3 countries, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. I want you now to follow me and we go to Uganda by boat. If you are ready, I'll take you across. A country of plenty, that is Uganda, commonly known as the Pearl of Africa, because of its beauty, abundant wildlife, and diversity. Uganda is a country of virgin land, very rich, and there's something that came up more than 3 times from the presenters that were here before me. In Uganda, for your information, you take a seed, you drop it to the ground, it grows naturally. You don't have to care for it. That is the beauty of Uganda. People have talked about organic tea. Organic tea, and for delegates coming from UK and France, that is the country where we can grow organic tea with very little cost, if any. I said we went across Uganda by boats. And then Lake Victoria, the largest in the tropical Africa, and the 2nd largest in fresh water. The bigger part of it is in Tanzania. So using the same Lake Victoria, let's move to Tanzania. Tanzania, tea is grown in the rich area around Mount Kilimanjaro. Mount Kilimanjaro is the tallest mountain in the continent of Africa and fourth highest mountain in the world, and that is where tea is grown. Before I take you back to Colombo, I want to take you to DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. You all know what it means when I talk of that country. It is a country known worldwide for its vast natural resources, immense arable land, and for your information, for those who have not had a chance to visit Congo, tea is grown on land full of mineral deposits. And to be specific, the tea gardens are around mining fields. But before I take you back to Colombo, I want to make sure that nobody is victimized. The tea in DRC, you only need to dig about a meter down and you get the minerals. So make sure you follow me, you don't take even a stone, or else some of you will remain in Congo. Thank you. Before I go to the main topic, my topic, which I think is fairly wide, part of it has been touched. I would like to let you know, because I've talked of Africa, I'll dwell on East Africa. We have 13 countries in Africa that are producing tea. Out of the 13, we have countries in East Africa. That is where the bulk of tea is produced from. And to be specific, 96% of tea produced from the continent comes from Africa. Can somebody assist? Oh, yes. I'll now go straight to my introduction. We'll be very quick. I've taken 4 minutes. Time is against me. My introduction, I will not talk about our experiences in East Africa or in Africa without touching about the experiences that we have in the world. We are very much intertwined in tea, and therefore, I will be talking about our experiences, which are mainly challenges that we have currently and before, and touching on the challenges that are similar in other parts of the world where tea is produced. Tea is the second most consumed beverage worldwide after water. That had been said, and I have to say it again. More than 2 billion people globally consume tea at least once per day, and the industry continues to grow. We've talked about the increasing productions, and therefore, that means the industry is ongoing. Globally, tea employs more than 13 million people in tea production, including 9 million smallholder farmers, with 70% of global production from 8 million smallholder farmers, both in Africa and Asia. Tea industry is an important sector in African tea producing country. In fact, not only important, but very, very important. The sector plays a critical role in the socioeconomic development, rural development, and poverty alleviation in these countries, with millions of households depending on tea directly and indirectly. Hence, held highly among the agriculture sector crops for both cash crops and subsistence crops. A sector contributes remarkably in the economies of these African tea-growing countries as one of the leading foreign exchange earners for the countries, with significant contributions of these countries' GDP. The next one is just to give yeah, that is my next one. And I've got, as I said, that we are intertwined, and now touch on the global production and consumption, which affects all of us as tea producers. The global tea production I'm talking about will be compared on what we produced during the year 2023 with 2022. In 2023, the figure stood at 6.6 billion kilograms as compared to 6.482 billion kgs in 2022. The consumption in the same year, 2023, was 6.212 billion kgs with a surplus of 392 million kgs. And I'll repeat, a surplus of 392 million kgs. And that is one of the challenges that we have, not only in Africa, but globally. China produced 3.250 billion kilograms, but retained 2.882 billion kilograms for local consumption. And that in terms of percentage is 89.4%, with 367 million kilograms, which relates to 11% for exported tea. Whereas India produced 1.367 billion kilograms and retained for local consumption 1.142 billion kilograms, and that relates to 83.5%, with only 225 million kilograms, which is 6% for export. Sri Lanka, where we are. Sri Lanka produced 256 million kilograms in the year 2023, exported 329 million kilograms, representing 93.4%, and the consumption is 16.8 million, representing 616 for local consumption. I now take you back to Africa, where we've just come from. Africa produced 797.9 million kilograms, with exports accounting for 628.8 million kilograms, representing 79%, and local consumption stood at 169%, which is 21%, and that is not the real figure. I'll explain as we move. Next is a very clear graph for the countries and tea performances during the year 2023. The top line represents the production in metric tons, and this is given for only 9 years, from the year 2015 to the year 2023. As you can see, in 2015, the production stood at 607,923 metric tons, and as you move, it is rising. Last year, 2023, the figure was 793,872 metric tons. That gives a rise of 31%. The second line represents the exports, also in metric tons. If you look at the left-hand side, 2015, it stood at 551,058 metric tons, rising to 628,814 metric tons in the year 2023. The rise represents 14%. And if you go to the lower line, which is the retained amount of stock, I'll explain why we had 21 previously, which I said I will. In 2015, it was 56,865 metric tons. In 2023, it went up to 169,058 metric tons. That is the 21% I talked about. That 21% is not the real figure. The figure that we had retained in 2023 in Africa includes some of the teas that were manufactured during that year, 2023, but were not sold until this year, 2024. And therefore, taking the teas that are in stock that were manufactured in 2023, brought over to this year, 2024, the actual percentage is very much below 10%. And my appeal to delegates from Africa, you know where we are. It had been said, and I'll repeat, we don't need to compete the crops that are competing us. It will be a waste of energy. We need to go out and talk to those who are not drinking tea. That is the only way we can manage. That percentage must be increased. My next is on challenges facing the tea sector. It is the sixth sector, as I said earlier, in Africa and globally. Overproduction, that has been mentioned severally by those who spoke before me. There's a mismatch in supply and demand. Depressed auction tea prices, that has been repeated more than the number that we expected. Something must be done about that. It is a challenge to us and the world over. High cost of production, input costs. We are talking of costs, input costs, cost of power, cost of labor. That again was mentioned before by those who spoke before me. Poor tea sector governance, legislative and regulatory challenges. That I'm glad at the opening remarks by His Excellency, it was touched on. And that is another challenge that is globally. Low levels of local consumption. I've just mentioned that before I came to challenges. In Africa, the figure is much below 10%. And this is not because people don't want to drink tea. In Africa in particular, the low levels for consumption are because of VAT on locally packaged and consumed teas, making tea very expensive, the competitive beverages that are supposed to be ignored by those who want to drink tea. Low levels of value addition and lack of conducive environment for tea value addition. This particularly is the biggest problem faced with Africa because most of the packages that we use for packing the teas are imported. We don't have them locally. Over-reliance on the traditional bulk export markets, new market developments, this is another big challenge for us in Africa, and it will be touched in another area. Lack of production diversification, that was it was explained by nearly 4 of those who gave their presentations, and it is time that this is diversified, that the tea is diversified. The ladies in the room, we are told that if you want to be more beautiful than you are, that is now the way to go. There's a lot that has been experimented on, and if you want to know, you better talk to the gentleman who talked about it, because I managed to share his ideas with him. Multiple levies, taxes, high transactional costs. In Kenya, I'll point out on Kenya, among the African producing countries, we have 42 taxes and levies imposed on tea. We are fighting it, but whether we'll manage, that is yet to be seen. Tea quality challenges. Again, that has been talked about over and over, and it is a big challenge because we cannot expect high prices if we cannot improve on our qualities. Globally, I think it is something that should be tackled, and the tackling of it should be now. We should not give it time. Global economic, geopolitical challenges, finance cost, and low servicing challenges. When I talk of finance in Africa, it is worse because of the interests that are imposed by banks. And climate change, that was touched. I'll now come briefly on distribution of the earnings, and this touches on the farmer. That is the foundation of the product we are talking about. I'll go through it very quickly. My time is running out. I've divided it into two. Oh my. Yeah, thank you. Okay, there we are. The distribution, I've divided it into On the left, we have smallholders. On the right are plantations. If you look at the top line, we have the brokers. In Africa, that is, the share for smallholders and plantations is equal at 1.5%. The warehousing receipts for smallholders 1.05, and for plantations is less at 0.86. Transportation, smallholders 0.82, plantations 0.89, management services 2.10, management services is 0. I hope that you know why. Smallholders, factories, 18.93. Plantation factories is higher at 34.69. Farmer proceeds for smallholders is 76.13. Outgoer proceeds for plantations is 62.32. And that is the distribution of the earnings for our tea value chain. Next. Next is how the system value chain works. Clearly, my time is like over. It is from the tea farmers, tea factory, warehousing, tea auction, government, and then you come down to the border management, shippers, border management, land transport at the commercial carriage, and then lastly to the last user, which is the distributor. Thank you. I'm glad I brought you safely to Colombo after visiting Africa. Thank you, and thank you again.
Thank you, Arthur. It felt like a real trip across East Africa.